now and just soak in this beautiful view. Then we'll get to chatting in just a moment. Dang, look at all those participants flowing in. Can we go even higher? Looking pretty good to me. We'll give it another beat. We're at 49. I would love to get at least one more, hit a nice even 50. Maybe that was really wishful thinking. We're at 49. We're going to roll with it, and we'll see if more people start joining us. Boom, there's 50 and 51 and some hearts. Love to see it. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Cam, or in this instance here today, I'm Cam on a boat, as you see, or on the boat, the state parks boat here in the beautiful Emerald Bay. Anybody ever been to Emerald Bay? Can I get some thumbs up, some heart emojis, some hands raised? Oh my goodness, I'm seeing a lot of hands, thumbs, and hearts. The beautiful Emerald Bay on the southwest corner of Lake Tahoe, the big, beautiful Lake Tahoe. Today, we are going to be exploring not only with Cam on the boat, this top side of Emerald Bay, but we have the Scuba Squad, a couple of our state parks dive team members under the water, believe it or not, under the water, doing some exploring through the Emerald Forest. It looks like there's one of my friends now. That looks like we will be exploring through the Emerald Forest. We also have another friend out this way on a kayak, another state parks member, our state parks team all over the place, exploring and doing some fun stuff today as we are guardians of Emerald Forest. We are exploring the beautiful Emerald Bay. I think Jeremy and the Scuba Squad is ready to take it from here. So I'd love to send it underwater. They told me I'm not supposed to go underwater. Not just yet, at least. So off to the Scuba Squad we go.
Hello and welcome. On behalf of the California State Parks Dive Team, welcome to the gorgeous Emerald Forest. My name is Jeremy Lynn, and over here on camera, this is Taylor Jackson. Say hi, Taylor. Hey. Hey, hey. We're just so excited you're here with us. This program is brought to you by California State Parks and the Sierra State Parks Foundation, making all this possible. Okay, we need your help into making sure that no aquatic invasive species invade Lake Tahoe. And this is something that everyone needs to be a part of to make sure that we're not getting our invasive species in this area. So today we're going to be doing a survey of the aquatic invasive species in this area. But I want to talk to you a little bit about what are invasive species. Does anyone know what aquatic invasive species might be? Well, typically, the definition of aquatic invasive species are non-native plants that colonize an area, that change the environment of this area. And you might have heard the term keep Tahoe blue. That's what it's referring to. You kind of keep Tahoe blue by keeping the aquatic invasive species out of there so you get this clear, crystal blue, gorgeous color. If the aquatic invasive plants colonize this area, they start to create this murky kind of brown water that we're trying to avoid. The purpose of today's dive is to do a survey in this area to look for aquatic invasive species, and we need your help. And as scientists out there, all my scientists in the chat, I need your help here. So when we are starting these survey dives, we're taking a look at our environment. So first off, we need you to make note of your observations of this area. So type that into the chat, and Pam up top is going to be monitoring this chat. Tell us, what are some of your observations here? What do you notice from this area? Any of this scenery here, does it remind you of anything? Do you have any curious questions kind of about the scene that we're in? And this is pretty standard for when we're doing scientific observations and studies. We are taking note of all the different things that we're seeing here. So Kim, do we have any people in the chat making observations so far of this scene of the Emerald Forest?
Yes, we do. They're noticing that blue-green, beautiful water. I believe that was Billy from Fresno who wrote that. We're also getting in the chat Why are there so many sticks and branches and trees is one of our questions in the chat. And yeah, what's all the stuff behind you? We're very curious about the trees at the bottom of the lake.
Excellent. These are fantastic observations. We're going to dive in deep with Pam talking about this general area, but we have a lot of forest and trees surrounded this area. We're near an avalanche zone, and so a lot of sediment and trees and sticks fall from kind of the steep edges of Lake Tahoe that are surrounding us down into here, and then they settle in this area. Excellent observations. We're going to have several other questions for you guys to answer as we continue. I want to talk a little bit about the tools that I'm equipped with for our survey. I've got, as we are searching this area, I've got a game bag here with fine meth. Now, the specific plant that we are looking for, the Eurasian milfoil, we want to make sure we capture all of it and none of it breaks off and escapes this net. That's why I've got kind of this fine meth over here. So we're going to find aquatic invasives, put it inside this bag. Now, if we come across an area where we have a big patch of aquatic invasive species, I'm going to be deploying this pelican buoy here as a marker to show the top side folks where large patches of invasive species are. I also have a slate here with a pencil if we need to take some notes as we're taking this survey. Excellent. We're going to find our position here. We're going to go up to Pam to learn a little bit about the stewards of this area, the history of conservation and removal of aquatic invasive species from state parks in this area. And then when we come back down here, we're doing our survey and we're going to need your help with that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Scuba Squad. I want to expand on some of those questions, some of those comments and ideas that we had offered up in our last question about the forest. How did that all get here? Was it once a forest that now water has filled up? There was actually an avalanche. Has anybody ever been to Tahoe in the snow? Can I see? I'm already seeing some clapping emojis, maybe some thumbs up, any hearts or raised hands, right? We get quite a bit of snow here in Tahoe. And when that snow melts on a nice warm day like today, sometimes big chunks of snow move down the mountain all at once. Sometimes they wipe out anything and everything in their path, like those trees, maybe some big granite boulders as well. So that stuff ends up in the bottom of the lake, making it look like there was once a forest here. But what we want to talk about is what really was once here. This whole bay, Emerald Bay, you can see the hillside over here with a huge boat, the MS Dixie riding by, and you can see this big hill over here. These are called moraines. They are, I know that's a big fancy word, moraines. Anybody ever heard of that one before? Maybe some of us have. Those are chunks of land that were deposited or dropped off there by glaciers. This whole bay, including 4 miles out into the mountains, used to be a giant glacier extending all the way to one of the highest peaks in Desolation Wilderness, a beautiful wilderness just right over here to our west, all the way to Dick's Peak. Eventually, right, it melted off a little bit and it deposited these rock, these trees, this sediment, and we now have these moraines and this beautiful bay that we call Emerald Bay, the only true bay on Lake Tahoe that also is home to the one true island. Does anybody know the name of that island? You want to maybe put that in the chat? You can see it right over here. Let's see, my pointing on Zoom isn't the bestest. It's right around there. We see our island. There's a little tea castle on it too. Maybe some of us have even been out to this island. I'm seeing in the chat that Vanessa says it is Finette Island. Way to go, Vanessa. Good job. Finette Island, the one and only true island here. The granite right there was strong enough when those glaciers were moving through that it stood the test of time. And now we have this nearly 2 million-year-old lake, Emerald Bay, Lake Tahoe. So much water in Lake Tahoe, almost 39 trillion gallons of water. I don't know about all of you, but that number is way too big for my brain to even comprehend. That's a whole lot of zeros. What we can translate that to, if we were to take all of this water out of Lake Tahoe, obviously we don't want to do that. But if we were to do that, we could spread it across the giant state of California. We'll look at a map in just a moment, and it would cover the entire state in about 15 inches of water. Think about how far you can travel in California from way down south in San Diego to way up north in Humboldt. That whole area covered in 15 inches of water, and not only water, but crystal clear water. This water is 0.004% less pure than bottled drinking water. We have water clarity reaching towards 72 feet. Absolutely incredible. That's how we can visit with the scuba squad and see so nice and clearly under the water. But that all comes with removing and preventing aquatic invasive species from taking hold here in the Tahoe Basin. So I want to open up a PowerPoint, show you some of the work that's been done in the last decade or two to help keep Tahoe blue. That should be all of ours goal, right? We want to keep this lake beautiful and clean as best we can. So here we go. Can everybody see that map we have? You can see how big California is there. And where we are right there, that little star, that is Lake Tahoe. Again, imagine the whole state covered in 15 inches of water. And if we move slightly to the left, we see a more zoomed in version of that map. We're seeing Lake Tahoe, some of the cities around the lake, Tahoe City, King Beach, Incline, and South Lake, right? And we're half in Nevada, we're half in California, right? We're California state parks. And let's zoom in even further. Boom, we are in Emerald Bay right here. And you can see a couple sites, right? Parsons Rock East, Parsons Rock site, Vikings Home, Eagle Creek Avalanche site. Today, we're going to zoom in even more. We are in the avalanche site. So far to the left of your screen is that avalanche site. Again, an avalanche occurred right up the mountainside, right down here. That's why our scuba squad is swimming around through all those trees. And now we're going to dive back in time a little bit. As you can see in this one, these are the sites where milfoil was found in 2010. Well, let's see how things changed. We go from spring of 2008 all the way to fall of 2014. We'll say that's about 6.5 years. The higher the column is, right, the more plant life, aquatic invasive plant life we were finding in Emerald Bay. The different colors will represent those different areas. Parsons Rock site is going to be over that way. Vikings Home site that away. And where we are right now is that avalanche site. So it's pretty colors, right? We see the graph, but what does that really mean? Let's go ahead and look at some real life photos of the work that we've done to remove some of those aquatic invasive species. So that Parsons Rock before and after treatment, that is quite a drastic change. That water looks pretty green, right? Can we give some thumbs up? Do we think that's pretty green on the left? And there's all kinds of plant life. Then what's missing in the next one? How does 2012 differ? Let's put some ideas in the chat. Yeah, Tony, I see that you're saying it's lighter, it's bluer, it looks sandier. Somebody's even saying that the tree looks less slimy, right? Big changes in just a year, thanks to some of the aquatic invasive species removal that we have done. Oh, look at this photo, right? This is a 3-year difference as opposed to a 1-year difference. But when we're looking there, we can even see the live in action removal of those aquatic invasive species. You see the pool net, they're cleaning stuff up as best they can. Again, from brown water to that crystal clear bluish green water, hence the name Emerald Bay, right? And let's look at one more photo, and then we have a special guest right here. Anybody want to swim in the 2009 photo? Any hands raised for that? That one looks pretty slimy to me. I don't think I want to get in there. What about in 2012? Do we want to swim in that water? I think so. It's making me want to swim right now. That water looks so crystal clear, and this water behind me looks so crystal clear. So we're going to exit out of our slideshow here. I have some examples right here of some of those aquatic invasive species, and maybe even a little animal figurine of some aquatic invasive species. But first, I want to bring on a very special guest. State Parks not only has divers and rangers and maintenance staff and interpreters and awesome tech people, but we have environmental scientists. So right here, a very special treat is Lindsay, our environmental scientist, to share a few words about our program today. Take it away, Lindsay.
Thank you, Cam. My role as an environmental scientist with California State Parks is to help our dive team in the data collection process when they're doing aquatic invasive species surveys. So we want to make sure that any species they detect while they're doing their surveys are documented and then put into our lake-wide AIS database. We have a standardized protocol that we all follow where we take a specific GPS point for each aquatic invasive species detection. And this data collection is really important because it allows us to monitor changes in the AIS population over time, so we can best determine how to control these species in order to keep Tahoe blue.
And that is our goal, right? Thank you so much for being with us today, Lindsay. We want to keep Tahoe blue, and we want to know what changes are being made. If we just go and clean up every once in a while, like, oh yeah, it's getting better, but let's monitor that it's actually getting better, that the work we're doing is having an impact. So I want to show you some of those examples of what we do and don't want to find down there. What do we have first? Looky here. This is Richardson's pondweed. You can maybe read that there, but this one is native. So we're okay with finding this guy down there. It is supposed to be here. So if we find it, good on us. We're going to leave that one alone. What do we have here? We have Eurasian Watermilfoil. You see that one's in red. It almost looks similar. A little stringier. If we find this one, we want to be pulling this one. We do not want this one around. We want to remove this so that our native species can take hold and establish that healthy environment, that healthy, crystal clear lake water that we want. But there's not only invasive plant life, there's invasive fish life as well. So does anybody recognize this little guy? We might call this a trout or a salmon, and maybe we've seen some trout or salmon swimming along in the lake, right? Swimming all over the place as they do. Well, our kokanee salmon, those are introduced, not exactly native. Our mackinaw, our rainbow trout, those are introduced species that maybe aren't the healthiest for the lake. We've also, unfortunately, as people, introduced goldfish, largemouth bass, and maybe a couple of other silly fish swimming around out there. But we want to protect our native fish species like the Lahotnan cutthroat. And if we're lucky, super duper lucky, and we keep our fingers crossed, we may even get to see some fish swimming around down with the scuba squad. And I think I've kept our scuba squad boys hanging out and quiet long enough. So I'm ready to send it to our scuba squad. Take it away, boys.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Underwater here in Emerald Bay, Emerald Forest. Okay, as we've been talking about, we need your help into finding and investigating this area to see if we see any aquatic invasive species. What I'm going to start doing is traveling along this transect. And this transect, the term transect, that might be a new word for y'all, but some of y'all might know what that is. In the chat there, what is a transect? Any guesses on what a transect is and the purpose of a transect? So I'm just traveling around, and this is our process. We're visually trying to identify to see if we can find any aquatic invasive species here. So I'm looking around this area.
All righty,
Cam, are there
Jeremy.
any good answers to what a transect might be?
Yes, we have some ideas in the chat. Braden says a transect might be a specific area. Does that sound about right, Jeremy? Do you want to expand on that? A specific area that we're looking at?
Yes, exactly. That is precisely what we mean by transect. So this is an area that we look at year after year, and based on the changes here in plants, we can make management decisions in terms of if we plan to treat this area to send divers out to remove aquatic species. This also gives us an idea of kind of what's happening around the lake in general if we pick a certain spot and come back year after year. So I'm going to keep on looking around over here. And I want you all to think about, as I'm inspecting this area, I want people to think about if you were in charge of the management of this area. So think about those pictures you saw where this is completely covered in aquatic invasive species. If you were the manager of this area, how would you choose to remove those species from underwater? Take a moment while I search this area over here and explain, if you were the manager, what strategies or methods might you use to clean the floor of aquatic invasives? I'm going to check this area over here.
Awesome. While we're thinking of that, we did have a question, Jeremy. We saw a shrimp-like thing maybe floating across the screen. I don't know if you guys caught that, but we definitely caught it up here and in the chat. You want to maybe expand on what we were seeing there?
That's a fantastic question. Do you have a question about that crawdad?
Yes, we do. So we have it confirmed. We see it in the chat. Was that a crayfish? Jeremy referred to it as a crawdad. And the question here is, do crayfish need clean water to live? Want to expand on that? Expand on that, Jeremy, and I'll look at the questions for how we're going to manage or some of those answers.
The audio cut out for a second. Yeah, so we refer to that as a crawdad or a crayfish. Those are non-native in this area, but they typically live around quite frequently underneath rocks and trees. Although they're non-native, they are pretty common in this area. And I found kind of an exoskeleton of one.
That's an awesome find and looked amazing up here on the camera. We have some ideas for how we might manage. So Kristen is saying we might plant some poison, I believe, to kill off those plants. And another idea from Kristen would be with a boat, we're maybe going out and cleaning up those areas. I really like the with a boat idea. That's what we're doing here today as Jeremy is searching around for any of those aquatic invasive species to be pulled and removed. The plant some poison, maybe not what we want to do, introducing some of those poisons that may kill other native plants, but by hand pulling these different aquatic invasive species, that's really something we do want to be doing and continuously doing, not just a one-off event. Awesome. Great question, Jeremy, and great answers from everybody.
This area was completely covered with these aquatic invasives, and there are several techniques that were used. Hand pulling was one of them. It's pretty work intensive to send divers out to hand pick all these invasive plant species up, kind of plant by plant. The next technique was kind of a suction device that came down here and you suck up large swaths of these plants. The next technique was actually placing these reusable rubber mats down to these areas. And with those rubber mats down, they block the sunlight from reaching those plants, causing those plants to die. And then those plants would kind of disintegrate, disperse, or they come down and use suction on the dead plants out there. So it's quite an extensive work to clear this area. So far, I'm not really seeing any aquatic invasive species in this general transect. Now, it would be great to go way over there, but we're kind of limited by the communications line here. You gotta stay close. We're gonna explore a little bit further this way, but first I wanted to show you my Mission Impossible technique. So one important thing, picking up the sediment here, is how to hover, ideally without picking up sediment, which I'm kind of doing. So one big strategy with scuba diving is your buoyancy. I have a weight belt over here, and my goal is to just kind of gently float right above and not picking up the water. and it picking up the sediment from the bottom and being really still. And I like to call this my Mission Impossible move, where Tom Cruise repels from the ceiling. Dun, 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 dun. Da-da-da. So I'm going to try to use Mission Impossible move as we get out of this area here. We're going to try to go through this and then search for some aquatic invasive species kind of in this area. So follow me over here. I also have another question for y'all as we're exploring this area. What would happen if we did not remove any of these aquatic invasive species? If California state parks just didn't invest the resources, or the people of California didn't invest the resources to remove these aquatic invasive species, what would your guess be if they were just let to grow and proliferate? Please answer that in the chat while I explore this little area.
Awesome. Great question, Jeremy. We also have some questions. While we're typing those into the chat, I'll answer a few other questions from the chat. What is that invasive plant called? Again, that is Eurasian Watermilfoil right here. We're coming back on camera in just a moment. Right there, you can see that guy. That is invasive. This is what it looks like. Another question, as we're referencing back to our charts, to all those columns, why did the plants fall in 2014? Why were there less of them? Because of the awesome work that our scuba squad does, because of our environmental scientists, because working with other agencies around the lake to clean up this beautiful body of water. Let's see. And we're getting some answers for that question that Jeremy posed. What would happen if state parks did nothing? Like maybe it looked like in 2008 when those plants were really high. Maybe we weren't doing quite as much work, or it was in the early stages. We're getting some ideas. It'll be ugly with invasive species is what I presume. Maybe not as clear of water like we saw in the slideshow. The water would not be as clean or healthy, which then hurts those native fish species like the Lahontan cutthroat, and it hurts the invasive species like a trout, a salmon as well. It would make it so no one wants to swim in the water. Everything would turn brown and murky. Exactly. The lake would not look good. It would not be nearly as clear, as crystal blue, and as beautiful as it is today. Amazing answers. And again, another great question from our friend Jeremy.
Yes,
we're going to send it
fantastic
back
answers there. Yep, if we didn't do anything about these aquatic invasive species, this lake would be very murky, it would be brown. And one thing that aquatic invasive plants do is they also attract other non-native species, perhaps different non-native fish or mollusks, like the Asian clam or the quagga mussels or the zebra mussels. They would kind of encourage a lot of these other aquatic invasive species to then propagate here in the lake. And it's what they call a positive feedback cycle. The moment where you start getting some invasive species, it kind of welcomes other ones. And Lake Tahoe would become murky and brown. So we need your help. In order to protect our beautiful places, Lake Tahoe, our gorgeous parks, it's a team effort. So we need your help to make sure that the aquatic invasive species aren't invading our beautiful places, that our ecosystems, our natural ecosystems stay intact. So I've got a question for y'all. What are some of the things that you can do to prevent the spread of the aquatic invasive species? So put that in the chat there. What are some of the things if, say, we are visiting Lake Tahoe with our family, or we're going to a beautiful natural place, and we might be, say, bringing a boat or some kind of watercraft or some kind of vessel? What are some things that we can think about to do to not spread those invasive?
Yeah, let's see those answers in the chat. I'm seeing people say clean it all day or clean it regularly. That's a great idea. Again, we'll show you those different species. We have our invasive species, our Eurasian water milfoil, and we have our native Richardson's pondweed, and we can see them side by side. They again look quite similar, but there are some slight differences. This one, our native species, is going to make for a healthier habitat for our fish species and for a cleaner, clearer Lake Tahoe. This one, our Eurasian Watermilfoil, not so much, not as healthy for our fish, for the lake, for us either. So we're cleaning it all day. We're going scuba-ing, whether it's with the dive team or different agencies around the lake to help keep this place clear. What else do we say? We are cleaning our boats before we put them in Lake Tahoe. Exactly. We want to clean, drain, dry. Say it with me in your classroom or from behind your computer. You ready? 3, 2, 1. We want to clean, drain, and dry.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And this doesn't just go for large boats. This can also go for small vessels like kayaks or stand-up paddleboards. And sometimes those smaller vessels actually scrape more along the plants and can pick up invasive plants. Whereas, and so make sure you rinse those off, drain them, dry them, and make sure your boat is inspected before coming into Lake Tahoe or some of these natural areas. It's also important to just kind of know what they might be. What are the invasive species that we want to keep an eye out for, and to be sure that we're not spreading this in the area. Make sure you research all the parks you're going to, understand what that natural ecosystem is, and join us for our interpretive tours. We've got a lot of amazing interpreters and wonderful park staff that are ready to welcome you into the park system, to show you around, to put you on the right path for a beautiful hike, or snorkel, or scuba dive. So come engage with us. We are here to serve you. We're so excited that you joined this live dive, and we're just so excited to have you visit us in person in these parks.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. We have a few questions. If we could just answer a few, and then we'll be saying goodbye for the day. We have what will happen when we don't clean the water. We did touch on this briefly. If we're not removing some of those invasive species, they can take over and again lead to that brown, murky, and unhealthy water. That's not what I'm a fan of. That's not what the Scuba Squad is a fan of. We love a blue Tahoe, a keep Tahoe blue. That's the dream. That's the goal. Here's a question for you, Jeremy. How does Nevada cooperate with California state parks in helping keep the lake clean?
That's a fantastic question. There are a lot of agencies that are multi-state. So it's not just California doing their own thing and Nevada doing their other thing. We have regional planning agencies and multiple organizations that work all together in coordinated effort. That's a great question because it requires teamwork in order for us to get all this done. You can't just have one person over here doing the best work that they can to make sure we're doing boat inspections and reducing the amount of aquatic invasive species, and then have someone over here on the other side of the lake that is not taking into account at all. So it really takes a team effort. So there's multiple agencies that are multiple states, multiple jurisdictions, multiple regions of the greater Lake Tahoe area, all working together. And you know what? That includes you as well. It takes all of us to work together to protect the beautiful places like Lake Tahoe and all the places that we love.
Amazing. That I could not have phrased it better myself. We are all in this together to keep Lake Tahoe blue, to keep it clean, and to not let it be brown and murky. And in fact, this water is looking so enticing that Cam on the boat, as you may know from last program, if you joined us, does not like being Cam on the boat. I prefer being Cam off the boat. So I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. I'm going to go join our scuba squad. Bye, friends.
Cam's jumping off the boat.
Yeah.
He's definitely enjoying the beautiful blue waters of Lake Tahoe. Come visit us. Stay in touch. Stay tuned for our other live dives that are coming up that we will announce soon. And thank you so much for protecting our parks, loving our parks, and being part of the parks family. From the California State Park